And as it counts down. Do you know we accept donations? Stars on Facebook? You know what Facebook stars are? Have you seen those?
I see him, dude. But come on, you always ask me this stuff. I don't do social media. You know this.
I
What,
always
what is a
ask you like
star?
the technical stuff.
Yes. What is it? Tell me what you're talking about here.
So they're almost valued at like 1 star is a couple cents. Like it's not like that's not like a dollar necessarily, but I think it's 99 or 100 stars is a dollar, and then you get a discount based on bulk volume of stars that you buy. So if you buy 20,000 stars for $100, well then each star kind of becomes worth a little bit more. And so you split that revenue with Facebook. So Twitch will do the same thing. If you have subscribers on Twitch, you split that. They have different tiers, but they split it 50-50 or 60-40. And if you're whenever you become a partner, so when you become an affiliate, they split that commission, and then become partner, and then they give you like 70-30 sort of thing. And so like Facebook does the same thing.
So,
So you can have subscribers on Facebook.
so you're
that'll do
telling
that.
me I, as the end user, would be buying stars and
Mhm.
then giving them towards people who I liked, essentially? Is that correct?
Oh, that
Yeah.
should turn out good.
Yeah, and then you don't,
Interesting.
and then you basically like it's a way to show support for like some financial support. There we go. Picture
There we
time.
go.
Picture time.
Nice.
All right, cool.
Nice.
Okay, beautiful.
Wow.
So,
Well, you know
there you
what?
go.
I didn't realize that, but that doesn't surprise me. I don't. Come on, man.
Are you ready?
I don't keep up with any of this. Let's hear it.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
That was a
That'll
good
kick
one.
us off. Spinning a legacy. Now, before we jump in today's episode, let's take a moment to appreciate the brew that keeps us going. This episode is proudly brought to you by GI Love Joe Coffee Company, a women and veteran-owned business right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. GI Love Joe offers 4 delectable coffee blends, each meticulously crafted to suit different taste profiles and roast levels. Whether you prefer the light and vibrant Bugle Boy, All Day Companion, Old Glory, the pour-over favorite Hail to the Chief, or the strong and robust Bombs Away, there's a blend for every coffee lover. Support local and enjoy the brew that fuels our podcast. Check out GI Love Joe Coffee Company, and remember, every sip is a salute to our soldiers. GILovejoe.com. They've got a page up on there, so if you're interested in ordering some coffee for yourself or your business, check out their website. You'll submit a form there, and the rest of it is in development. So in today's episode of Spinning a Legacy on the Brews and Business podcast, I'm thrilled to sit down with Joshua Norrid, the passionate owner of HI-Fidelity Records. With over 2 decades of experience in the record business, Joshua offers a unique insight into the world of rare records, pop culture, music memorabilia, and autographed memorabilia as well. Joshua, welcome in, man. How are
Hey,
you?
yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, gentlemen. Appreciate you guys, and beautiful setup. A little rainy day here, but I'm excited to talk. Yeah,
I'm enjoying the rain. This
Yeah.
whole week has
Yeah.
been great.
I'm not gonna lie, it's really nice. It's a windows down type weather.
yeah,
I love it.
definitely.
Yeah.
I'm ready for fall.
Today's brew, I've got a Guinness. Joshua's got one as well.
Yeah.
And you got a good old Modelo.
Modelo. Always.
You say that way better than I do.
What Modelo?
Modelo.
What? I have practice.
Rolls off the tongue.
It
yeah.
does. It does.
So you got a rich journey in your industry. Like you're two decades in, and into doing what you've been doing with the record stuff. So kind of just give me a rundown of where you got started, and this goes all the way back to like 1989.
98.
98,
I'm not that old. Not
Okay,
yet. Not
alright.
yet. But yeah. So, anyways, it was my second job. First job was stacking groceries at a little mom and pop grocery store. If anybody remembers those before, all the big ones came along. So that was my first job. But then I moved. I really loved music. I'd always loved music. I was an only child growing up, and a latchkey kind of situation, and so yeah, music just kind of became my friend, if that makes sense. I learned a lot about life from music, and I really had a passion for it, whether that was for whatever reason I did. And so my second job, I ended up working at Camelot Music, which later became FYE in the malls. Another thing that's almost gone, malls. So
Promenade Mall went out. Like they're done now,
no,
and it's becoming a skating rink, an ice rink for the Oilers.
Is it?
They're putting in 2 of them.
That'll
Yeah.
be fun.
I think it's pretty cool. And then I think there's a Crunch Fitness now there too, and then like a huge storage unit. But yeah,
yeah, it was yeah, So crazy times before the internet.
I
So
like the Promenade Mall. It felt like the Woodland Hills Mall was so open, but Promenade like had the carpet and stuff, and it was kind of quieter. And
It's
I don't know.
on his realm, I will say I miss being able to go into a store and you could play your music, like that whole experience of going in, whether it was video games, you talk about FYE, they carried all kinds of electronics. You go in there and it was like, like Toys R Us. Toys R Us isn't around anymore. Like that's a whole experience that's gone.
I miss
It's
shopping for toys like that. That
right.
was good
Well,
times.
and it's crazy because I take my kids now to Walmart to just run around and play at Walmart or look at the toys. I'm like, I used to do this growing up at Toys R Us, and now like my kids will never experience that. That's sad. That's sad.
Remember the demos that they'd have displayed?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. But so let's go back to you, FYE.
yeah, so I worked there for about a year, and I kind of learned, a little bit how to say, it wasn't hard for me to sell music to folks because I'm passionate about it, which is why I do it now. So even then, I remember trying to sell a middle-aged gentleman at the time, Pink Floyd Pulse live box set at the time, and just like really selling him on him. And he's like, "Kid, he goes, how do you even know about Pink Floyd? How old are you? Like 12?" I was like, "No, man, I'm 16. I know all about Pink Floyd. Don't test me." So, but yeah, that was my first job in music. I loved it. I went on, actually became a musician later, and I toured a little bit, which is a little bit of my story. Um, and then I ended up going to a place. It was right before the vinyl kind of like boom started. So we're talking early aughts. Working for a little shop here in town called the Vinyl Countdown, and that's really when I started to learn about collectible records, how collectible some records could be, um, and a lot more about the hobby. Because as any record collector knows, about this time, Discogs came around. If people aren't familiar with Discogs started off as a community-run marketplace, right? So it's nerds like me saying, "Hey, what does your copy of the Beatles' Sergeant Pepper say in the dead wax?" Now, the dead wax is the unplayable part that's around the label on a record. And so people just comparing them. Oh, well, my copy was pressed here. My copy says this, and my copy sounds awesome. And mine doesn't have. So there's people kind of comparing notes, cataloging, and now we fast forward to today. Discogs is a huge. It's a marketplace. People are selling through there, so it's not just a database of information. But so that's when I started learning Discogs, learning about collectible records. They unfortunately, the Vinyl Countdown unfortunately closed down because people weren't hip to vinyl quite yet. It wasn't cool yet.
Hmm.
And then I moved on, and I thought, well, I guess that's the end of that. I guess I'd stop playing music because it's just darn near impossible to be a musician unless you're born with a little scratch in your pocket already. And so I was
What'd you
like,
play?
I played guitar, played harmonica, bass. Yeah,
Like acoustic or electric?
both. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. So I enjoyed it, but it just became kind of a situation where anytime you get involved in anything that's with the arts, you're gonna have a hard time making money. It's
Hmm.
just the way it is. So anything that's fun, everybody wants to do it. So yeah, I was like, man, well, I guess that was cool. I'm glad that lasted. I'm glad I got that experience, but I kept collecting and I kept digging deeper on my own because it was something I was passionate about. And fast forward, I don't know, this is 2016. I'm getting ready to move downtown. I've just bought a house downtown Tulsa, and I needed a job that paid a certain amount to get a loan. And I heard Josie Records was coming to town just through the grapevine. Like they hadn't announced it or anything. And they're from Dallas. They're from the Dallas area. And I contacted them and they said, yeah, we're going to be in town, do an interview. They asked me how much money I needed to start. And, I knew exactly how much money I needed to buy the house for them to approve me for a loan. And I said, this much money, which probably wasn't good negotiating skills, but
But you had something else on mind at the moment.
yeah,
You
definitely.
needed that house.
Definitely, and they said, okay, yeah, we can do that, and they gave me a job, and you know, I once again, I went into that job, and I just learned a ton, really on my own. I had another guy that worked with me there who was fairly knowledgeable I'm a little more buttoned up now. I wear polos and t-shirts and have short hair, and this guy was kind of a little bit more your prototypical record store dude, and he he poo-pooed me away a lot, like, you don't know, but he knew that I knew a lot, or he was trying to run me off, but I figured out, I was like, he knows stuff I don't know, so I was like, I'm gonna make friends with him. And so I would say, oh, well, what's that album? And I mean, that's all I had to say, and he would tell me everything about it, and everything he said to me I memorized. So I learned a shit ton from him, pardon my French. And he didn't even like me, but I figured out how to work him a little bit to get him to teach me even more. Um, Fast forward a few years, I was the manager there. Um, and I just decided, to part ways with Josie because it just wasn't going to be a situation to where I was going to be able to move up in the company or, in fact, the owner even told me, he goes, "If you're comfortable being a record store guy, that's the kind of job we can offer you. There's no way to move up." And me not being the typical record store guy who's happy with that lifestyle, I said, "Well, screw that." I was like, "I'm going to go back to college and I'm going to get my business degree." And so I put in my 2-week notice. I went and got a job at Andolini's uh, at Mother Road Market, and I went back to school to get my business degree. So that's how I left there. And then, golly, let's see. There's been so many roads in between. I actually worked for the Black Wall Street Gallery. So what happened was, is I leave, I go to school, COVID happens, and like all of these people come out of nowhere wanting to open up a record store in town.
It became really popular.
It
I haven't
did.
realized how popular it was.
It's crazy
I mean,
popular now.
one of my buddies, he loves records and he collects them and has been for about 5 years or so, roughly about 5 years. And he bought one of the record players that can convert to digital, and it's got its own built-in speaker. It's like a modern version,
Mm-hmm.
modern record player. But I thought it was cool. And like one of his birthdays, I bought him a record that he was chasing after, and I went and tracked it down and got it for him for his birthday. But he was ecstatic. It's cool. And I heard that they produce the best audio quality. Is that right? Like, there's something
That's debatable. I mean,
the best? It's opinion.
I'm gonna try not to be long-winded on it. So we have vinyl was the king, right, of all music medium. That was what you bought when you wanted to listen up to a point, and then of course our good friends the compact discs come around. Early '80s.
The CDs,
Yeah, the CDs come
compact
around.
disc,
Yeah,
right? I
compact.
remember those. Did you carry one?
Yeah, I did. Few of them.
Heck yeah.
Non-skippable one.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was a cherry right there, man.
Yeah, and they promised you that it was going to be better sound quality, portable, no skips, scratches.
It was like 80s, 90s, right?
Yeah, we're talking about probably the mid '80s, and they're expensive at this point. So this is something that only people who are upper middle class probably are purchasing at this point. So CDs come along, they promise you that people start unloading their vinyl. Stores stop carrying vinyl. I mean, slowly but surely. And then people get into CDs, and then people think vinyl is dead. So I guess I'm not going to give a whole story of vinyl right here, but to answer your question, yes and no. CDs can sound fantastic. The original CDs were direct transfers from the tape. So that's why you'll see, this in the early CDs, they'll say, this has limitations due to the analog tape. And you can hear the tape hiss on those CDs, and they sound fantastic. Well, later on, they start doing digitally remastering. And so what they do is they cut off the tape hiss because like people don't like tape hiss, get rid of it. But once they lop that tape hiss off, what they've done is they've also lopped off some of the information. So you're losing dynamic range on those CDs, and so the later CDs just sound like poo. And then we get to today, we're listening to Spotify and we're streaming, and we have this convenience of every song in the world at our fingertips. But the music is so supremely compressed, made to sound loud because you're listening to it through your car speakers or your earbuds, that you've lost a lot of information. that made it sound good, and that's fine if that's all if you're gonna listen to through Bluetooth speakers. But if you actually have a setup, the less compression, the better. Um, but when it comes to vinyl, yeah, it can. I mean, a lot of contemporary vinyl pressings like Taylor Swift and stuff, that's all recorded digital, and it's not mastered to the medium. I guess they're just hedging their bets that most people who are listening to more contemporary top 40 artists are listening to it through their AirPods
Hmm. Hmm.
or whatever, you know what I mean? And so, it's like, when I worked for Analog Productions, they were going to do some more contemporary artists, and they would send them the files, and they would say, wow, this sounds so bad. Bruno Mars was one of them. They're like, this sounds so bad. We can't even do this. You know what I mean? Can you send us a file? And they're like, nope, that's all we have. That's what we did. So, sorry that was a little long winded. I
No,
guess,
no, it's totally good.
yeah, I
So-
guess what I'm trying to say is, it's
I
like,
got a question loaded up, so
Yeah.
I'll get in line.
if it was
Mind you.
if it was recorded all analog from the 60s and the 70s, you want an original. It's going to sound best that way. You go buy a Beatles album today, they have digitized that is basically from a high res digital file, and some of them don't even use high res digital files to press into the vinyl. Some of them just use this less than CD quality. So sorry that was long winded, but
I assume it
is
makes it more valuable too. The more original ones, right?
yeah, definitely the clean original ones are certainly the ones that collectors are hunting after. Yeah.
So I've got a question. What's your opinion on why all of a sudden vinyl is now so popular? I mean, everybody's looking at Walmart selling. Everybody's selling it, right? It's the new thing. Why is it now that it's coming back? And it, like you said, it almost seems like after COVID, all of a sudden it's the thing now. Why?
Certainly. Well, yeah. I mean, we've had a long build up, but you're right. Things did explode during COVID. I think it's the whole experience of it all. It's very tactile, right? You pull it out and you open it up and you can see the pictures. Let's just take Taylor Swift, for instance. And she's like the most popular artist in the world right now. Oh, wow, look at these pictures of Taylor. Man, oh, they're in color and they're big and I can feel them and I can see them. And oh, man, I can take the record and I can put it on the turntable and put the needle on. You're part of it. And I think that's I really do think, and then you have something to show for it, right? You can't display the album art on your iPhone,
Right.
but you can frame it and put it up in your dorm room or your bedroom. And so it's a piece it's the piece of the music that you love, and I think that's why it's come back. And there'll be people who will pick it up because it's popular and put it back down, and there'll be people who will pick it up and become passionate, and they'll keep collecting for forever. So I think it's a beautiful thing.
I love that answer because we after COVID and we've talked to so many people and we come back to how it's like one of the best and worst things that could have ever happened in business because it totally changed the way business is done. But it has got it almost emphasized the fact that it's more of experience again. We have technology taking over, and COVID almost reemphasized how we as human want that physical touch. People want a physical phone call. They don't want a text. It's the same concept. Everybody now is just used to that text. Like, no, I want a phone call. I want to meet with people and actually shake your hands. And it's the same concept, right? Where we were so confined or taken off away from everything else that we were looking for that next thing to be real, and that's a perfect example. There's a whole experience involved with these records that it's not just put on shuffle or whatever on my phone. It's like you said, you almost have to mentally prepare for this, right? It's like when you get a cup of coffee, instant cup of coffee, whatever, let's go. It gets the job done. But whenever you're like, you know what, I'm gonna make me a coffee today, and you take your time to make yourself a good coffee, you're like, yeah,
Like we did with GI Love Joe when they were here,
exactly.
and we boiled the water, and then we prepped the Chemex,
Mhm.
and we ground the coffee, and then we waited for it to drip and brew, which took probably 10 minutes to make
But it's
4 cups of
experience.
coffee.
Yep. Experience.
But it was a great cup of coffee too.
It was a great cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So what
See,
was your question?
I can come back to it. Was more of a comparison about the vinyl compared to some of the digital stuff, but yeah, when you made a good point about people really want that interaction, and we've tried to give people that interaction through VR, you know, and the headsets and like, oh, no, you can still see your friends. You can still see your family. It's okay. You don't need to go see them in person. It's fine now. Like we can adapt, but it's still like as soon as here in Tulsa, especially, as soon as those what was it called, lockdowns or whatever, right, were kind of lifted, everyone just scattered. It was like they left the house and they were like, can't wait to meet everyone, and went to the malls and stuff too, and they loved meeting with people. So, um, my question was, and if you know the answer, great. If you don't, that's okay.
Sure.
The difference between in the quality with the vinyl and like Apple's, I think Spotify has like the lossless audio as well in their AAC files. Is there like, is that comparable? Like, is vinyl still better?
Well, that's a good question. And we also have other streaming services like Tidal and Qbuzz. Qbuzz, I think that's how you pronounce it. Tidal's actually, I think, part owned by Jay Z, and those are all lossless. Both of those, they don't offer anything but lossless high. But you have to have a good DAC, and a DAC is a digital analog converter in whatever device you're using in order to be able to even decode that lossless quality, right? So I guess to answer your question is a lot of the newer vinyl is pressed with a high res file. They're using a high resolution digital file. Like I guarantee that's how Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is not recording to tape. I mean, highly doubt it. Maybe some of it she is. I don't know. And so they should be really similar. I think one important thing to remember, and it always helps me, is anytime you compress something, you lose information. Anytime you make it smaller, you're losing information, whether that's an MP3 or you're putting it on a CD, you're going to lose information. And if that matters to you, then, the lossless stuff is awesome, and the vinyl is great too. But
In MySpace, it's a constant battle trying to provide like the highest quality with the lowest file size, because like I mean we have terabytes of audio and video and photography, and to try to transfer those between, like, we have some people that work on our team that aren't physically here, like one of our editors are in Denver, and so there's been some podcast episodes where we've recorded 150 gigs or more or 200, and to try to upload those, and then he has to download them to edit them, stuff like that, and I can't compress them because if I just try to I mean, I guess I could put them in a zip file, but there's a whole steps to that. So anyways, how do you have to adapt? So being an owner of a record store, how do you compete or adapt to how people change and technology changes in music?
sure. Well,
Because
I
you have to
mean,
compete with Apple and Spotify and Amazon Music. To some degree, you are, right? You're
yeah,
still trying to tell people, no, there's still value and quality in the vinyl, and you want it, you need it, because it gives you that physical, you know.
Hmm.
yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, I really have a narrowed down niche of people that I'm dealing with. I mean, there's different kind of levels to collecting records. Folks that are shopping at maybe like say Josie Records. There's not a whole lot of what quote unquote audiophile shopping there. People are just trying to pick up their first copy of whatever there. So the folks that I'm dealing with, which kind of transitions to working in analog productions, are people who are high end customers. They have high end sound systems. We're talking $20,000 and up, up to $1 million, $2 million. These folks, they want these audiophile recordings from some of the audiophile labels like Analog Productions, Mobile Fidelity, Impex. But they also want quality originals as well. They want clean quality originals to collect. So I've really narrowed it down. There's no record store even in town that even caters to that customer. But I really know a lot about that customer, and so I'm not doing a whole lot of convincing, because I really know who my customer is, and
So, with High Fidelity Records, you're based out of Tulsa, right? You mentioned your, and this kind of goes along with Braden's question, but you mentioned that your customer base, like you said, is very niche, right? Which is great, but honestly, because like you said, you're not selling at this point. They already know what they want. They're just looking for it at this point, which is it helps tremendously. Do you compete per se with like Spotify and Apple? Like, do you do it online as well? Do you ship records, or you guys strictly in store? What else? How do these audiophiles get those records from you? What is the best method, or I guess somewhere along that lines? How would you answer that?
Yeah, sure. So, Tulsa doesn't have a huge audiophile community, so opening an actual brick and mortar store that just caters to that would probably be cost prohibitive. So I'm online.
Okay.
So I do through my website. I also sell through some of the marketplaces like Discogs, which I discussed earlier. eBay. We do some Whatnot live auctions, um, and I've just been kind of trying to build my base of customers from there. I had some high end customers that kind of followed me over from my last job, and that's really helped me. And but yeah, that's kind of basically it. I go and find them and let them know that I'm here and who I am.
Right. Right.
Because I did some cool stuff the last place I worked, and so there's some people that know me. I've been on some other podcasts where not like this, not live, but where we're doing the whole Zoom situation, and talk a lot about records. And I have my own YouTube channel, HI-Fidelity Records. Just trying to get the word out, because I don't, I started this company with $10,000 of my own money that I saved. I don't have a benefactor. I don't have anybody else. I've just kind of had to figure it all out. But like I said, everywhere I went,
He fits right in, doesn't he?
Yeah, fits right in. Yeah,
Just had to figure it out.
I was actually talking with a client this morning, and she was like, "I'm just figuring this stuff out. I don't know how it works, and I need help."
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And I had, and like I said, everywhere I went, I learned something. I learned a little bit, or I learned it on my own, and so I had a lot of knowledge on the business before I even started, or I wouldn't have even started. But I was just, I had just turned 40, and I was like, man, I've been
You're
working.
not 40.
I'm 40.
Shut
I
up.
Old
wouldn't have
man,
believed that
yeah.
either. I wouldn't believe that either.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah.
32, 30, 36,
I got
35.
too many gray hairs for that, but thank you.
You got gray hairs? Look at my head.
Yeah, it happens.
Uh,
I just turned 30 in
yeah.
February. Well, I'm almost 31. Oh, I just didn't turn 30.
Basically.
Whatever. So your website is HI
Yeah.
fidelityrecords.com.
Correct.
So I've got it pulled up. I can look at all of your products that you got.
Yeah, you can look at all the products on there. I also kind of have a forum on there for folks that are wanting to sell their record collections.
Benny Carter Jazz.
Yeah, Benny Carter Jazz. That's awesome. It's
So I've got to ask you real quick before, what's the highest value record
You've seen.
you've seen, you've got to sell, and what made it so valuable?
oh gosh, you know,
Like, did you drop 2K on a record and
Well-
be like, I gotta have this in my shop,
yeah,
or I gotta have this for my collection?
yeah.
And I don't know about you, but like 2,000 sounds crazy, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was a record valued at tens of thousands.
Certainly, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, when I worked for Analog Production, I traveled to New York to pick up a really large record collection there. And this was a guy I dealt with. He line dialed me up, and I developed a relationship with this gentleman. He actually lives in the Bronx. His name is Larry Topper, so shout out Larry Topper in the Bronx. Yeah, and he
We go Block McQuaw.
yeah. So anyways, yeah, he's handicapped. He couldn't tell me what he had, but I spent hours on the phone with him. And I go and I tell my boss, I'm like, we need to go see this guy. And he said, all right, we'll figure it out. So I kind of, from what he told me, I kind of figured out how many records he had, and I kind of had to logistic it all out, because the guy that I worked for had no clue. Like nobody there even did, to pick up a collection that large and bring it back. So I had a U-Haul in the Bronx waiting for me. I didn't know we were even going to buy it. I had a U-Haul in the Bronx waiting for me. I had everything, all my packing materials on hold at U-Line to be next day delivered in case it went down. And we flew there, got there. As soon as we walk in this guy's door, it is just like epic, the greatest record collection of all time. I mean, the first thing I'm seeing white label promos. If you're not familiar with a white label promo, these are things they send to people at the label. You know, like the head of the label gets a white label promo. Maybe they
Oh
make
wow.
maybe they make 20 or 25 of them. So the very first one's pressed off the line. But this guy's got white label promos of classic records. This guy's been collecting since the mid 60s, since he was
Wow.
a teenager. And pristine, like he like from an early age already knew how to take care of them. And we're talking lacquers as well. Lacquers are what is brought to the pressing plant to actually make the record off of.
Oh wow. Okay.
You know, so like say we're in a recording studio, right? And a guy, say we're recording the tape just for funsies. The guy's got the tape of the record. He's got it spooled up, and then he has the lathe, and then he has the lacquer down on the lathe, and then he starts the tape, and then right then, you know, the cutting deal is going to cut that lacquer, cut that music into it.
Oh, wow.
And then that's what goes to this guy had lacquers, like Bob Dylan lacquers, Eagle lacquers. He had been going to all these record stores and, you know, in the Bronx and Greenwich Village, the lower East Side, and, you know, he made friends with these guys. You have anything cool, you know, like extra cool stuff that, you know, save it for me, I'll give you top dollar for it. And that's exactly what he did for decades. And so, you know, we get this collection and yeah, we bring it back and it's just I don't even know what to say. There was records in there I'll never see again. I think probably the most expensive record in that collection, and I could be wrong, there was an original advanced copy, and there was only a few of these of Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run.
Oh,
And it
wow.
was a completely different cut of the album. The font on the front was in a complete different. It looked completely different. All the pictures were different inside, and you know, we actually sold that. We sold a large part of the collection to Craig Kalman, who was the CEO of Atlantic Records.
Oh nice.
He actually flew in and looked at the collection. It was one of the pieces he picked up and bought a lot of. I mean, but if I was going to price that out, probably to the right Springsteen collector, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, with things like that, when they're that rare,
Million?
no, 1,000,
Okay.
1,000.
I know. I'm thinking millions over here. I'm like,
I
yeah.
was too.
I mean, because if you think about it, like you said, yes, it's a very niche community, but that also helps hold value and increase value. So that 5 million may have not been out of the ballpark. You know,
I
just-
wouldn't
I
surprise
just didn't
me.
know. You
There's
know?
stuff that like sells for that kind of price point. And sometimes I'm like, wow, really? And so now I'm just kind of like, that's probably 5 million, right?
Yeah,
The whole collection probably close, huh? It was a big one.
you know, probably retail, if you're gonna piece that collection out, we're talking about 10,000 records.
Whoa.
Which, in my naivete, I drove all the way back from the Bronx to Kansas, which is where we were located there, and I just don't think I knew what kind of job that was going to be. I had picked up large record collections in other cities, but I'd never driven in New York with a U-Haul. And to
That's
say,
fun, isn't it?
absolutely not.
Man,
it makes me
I
think
did
of
that
like
with the
Midtown.
I did that with a 16-foot box truck last year. Pain in the ass.
It is, yeah.
Dude.
And the people in New York,
There's certain roads that you can't drive on. If you drive on the road and
Mhm.
you're a commercial vehicle, which mine was, or his probably is too, like you'll get fined. You'll get pulled over and then get fined.
yeah, definitely, yeah. And no one's friendly in New York. They're in a hurry.
That's why I
Oh,
like
yeah.
Oklahoma.
Nowhere to park.
Everybody's
Nowhere to
friendly here.
park. I'm like, why did I drive here? I'm like, oh yeah, I was hired to. Damn it.
Yeah, well, in this guy's area, you know, he lived in an area called Co-op City, which is kind of its own little community there in the Bronx, and literally nowhere to park this thing. Like, he was like, so I parked it, and I was like, I went and bought a club at this like little bodega. They sold breakfast sandwiches, but they also had like, you know, mace and clubs and stuff. So I put a club on the steering wheel, and I left it there overnight, and I was like, well, hopefully nobody takes it, and hopefully we don't get a ticket. And we literally had it there for 2 days, and no one did anything until the third day. We walk out. I've parked it. I've put the club on it, you know, and a cop comes over and gives us a ticket. And I'm like, well, shit, we got a ticket. He's not going to tow it, so we're good till the next morning. So then I'm like, we're going to have to find some other place to put this thing. And so I'm like driving around the area, and I find a place where they have a ton of food trucks lined up, and I drive in, and I'm gonna drive into this area. I'm gonna pull it around, and I literally have this guy like screaming at me, "Turn it around, turn it around!" I'm like, I'm trying, I'm trying. He's like, "You better be," but I was like, "Okay." And so I just left it on the side of the road with these food trucks, and we've got, like I said, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of records in it at this point, and just praying. At that point, nobody does anything, and then we got hit. We got hit by a semi in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Hit us. We almost toppled over. I think we stayed in like a Roach Motel in Columbus, Ohio, and I mean we made it back in 2 days from the
Wow.
Bronx. We got stuck at one point actually in the Bronx. It was an old bridge, and the bridge didn't have enough clearance for us, and I was like, man, this is where GPS is telling me to go. So, yeah, there was.
Oh yeah, and that's the other part.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Damn,
That's the part
man.
nobody ever thinks about driving a big truck.
Yep.
is,
And Google Maps don't care.
No, well,
There's some settings.
I would say
right,
there's
but-
some settings you can adjust, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, I mean, most of the time people don't think about that whenever they're driving a box truck until you either take the top off or you actually come up to a bridge like, oh shit, I never thought about that, but that bridge looks pretty low. I'm not sure if I can make it do that.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it was, and then we get, just to cap off the whole story. We drive it. We've made it into Kansas, into the town, a little town, Salina, home of Brent Venables, who's the OU football head coach, whatever that means to anybody. They're proud of him there. So
I knew that sounded familiar.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's from little town Salina. So anyways, we get there. It's just monsooning. But we're so tired, and I drive. We park the truck at the office. I take the guy that's with me back to his house, and I start to drive back, and then I think for a second, and I remember a little sign inside the U-Haul, and it said, "This cabin is water resistant but not waterproof." And I thought, we ought to do something. I mean, we're dead tired. So I roll up and I knock on the guy's door. I was like, "Bro, you have a tarp or something?" And he was like, "Why?" I was like, "Man, it's water resistant, not waterproof." I was like, you wanna go back there in the morning and all these records that we just paid and drove back and risked our lives for are destroyed?" And he was like, "Good point." So we had to go back and put tarp all in the back of the U-Haul because it was just raining that hard, but but yeah, it was quite an experience, and fantastic record collection. And really, when we got done and the dust settled, I thought, and like I said, I'd done this before, but on a smaller level. I thought, damn, I was like, I can do this shit.
Yeah, I did it. Yeah, right.
I like organized. The only thing that I didn't do was come up with the capital. And and once I realized, I won't say how much we paid and how much it all sold for, but once I thought to myself, man, if I'd had the capital, think how much money I could make,
Can you say what it sold for?
you know, uh, over $1 million.
Damn,
That's cool.
that is cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
So you had that big win, right? Which, as all big wins usually happen, it almost killed you. High-Fidelity Records, you mentioned you started with $10,000. Here you are now. Do you do this full time? What does that look like now, and what does that story look like from the day you started High-Fidelity to now?
Sure, yeah. So I leave Analog Productions, similar situation from Josie Records. Hey buddy, we don't care how hard you work and how much you care. You'll never get any higher. You start to realize the stories my grandfather told me. He started off driving a truck for Borden's, and he retired as the regional sales manager, right? You start to think, well, those stories just, they don't happen anymore. You know what I mean? No one's rising up from the bottom to the top anymore. It's just, that's a century story, not a 21st century story. Like, buddy, we don't care what you did. We know you just made us $1 million. You're never going to go anywhere. You might be lucky to get $1 raise. So I'm like, man.
You want $50 and a sandwich?
Right.
That's pretty much right. Pizza party.
Yeah, right.
Here's
yeah.
a pizza party. Good luck. Thanks, man.
We had a lot of pizza parties around there. So so I was like, man, it's time to get out of here. I tried to get on with some other companies and was unsuccessful, and I was just like, I don't even know how I even came. I think I had people encouraging me too, being like, you should just do it on your own. I don't think you know how hard this is. But, I knew, I was like, all right, well, cool. Let me come up with a name. So, you know, all along the way, and I have a buddy who used to, he was the manager of the Apple store in Woodland Hills from the time they opened until just really a few years ago. Super, super good with making stuff. And I said, man, I was like, here's the name I've come up with, High-Fidelity Records, not like High Fidelity the movie, but HI, like hi-fi. I was like, can you make me a logo? We brainstormed on that. He shot me a logo. We came up with it.
It's very like retro. I like it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Good fit.
yeah, and I just kind of went from there. I started my social media. You just go to everybody and follow them first. That's how you kind of have to do it, so they know about you. And
That's the unfollow follow strategy.
right,
Have you heard of the 2 cent one?
I'm not.
Comment, give your 2 cents on 10 to 20 posts a day. So go to people in your industry or people that you want some attention from. Maybe they've followed certain other pages and they've commented. Well, then you comment on their comment, so then you start showing up in all these comment feeds and they go, oh, well, what's high fidelity? Who is that or whatever? Oh, that's good insight. That's a good opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, you had to start somewhere, hey, here I am. Hey, I'm the guy that worked because we did a huge video about that New York thing. Because all along I was like, this might be epic. So from the time, because I had no clue we were going to buy it. I was filming the entire thing. So when I got back, I had a ton of footage and they made this, they had obviously a team, and I gave them all my footage and they spliced it all together with stuff we filmed there. So, people knew me from that. So I made sure people knew that that's who I was. And, like I said, I started my Discogs, got my Discogs page rolling, my eBay page rolling, and
eBay, man, member since 2008.
yeah, yeah, man. Dude, you can buy you can buy a muffler on there now. So
I can buy anything on there.
can buy
Dude, I
anything
made
on
so
eBay.
much money years ago, like on eBay. I'd buy shit at garage sales and sell it on eBay, bro. I'd go find stuff in my parents' garage when I was living at home. Go find stuff in the garage. Be like, Mom, can I sell this? Mom, can I sell that? Dad, do you need that tool?
you'd be surprised.
And then I'd take some orders and be like, Mom, I need you to take me to the UPS store because I got to mail a bunch of orders, eBay orders. I mean, I wasn't like balling or anything, but I was making some
Right.
good money for like not having a job.
Yeah,
Right.
man.
Because I'm getting back in 2008.
You got to get started
Bro.
somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. You had the entrepreneurial spirit.
Dude, I always try to figure out ways to make money. I don't care what it is. That's why I like doing what I do now because like I get opportunities to be creative on how to make really other people money,
Sure. Yeah,
which is fun. I get to explore that, but I think it comes back around. So.
it does, man. Yeah, definitely. We're all in the hustle these days. It's not easy. It's not easy for anybody. So yeah, there's people selling all kinds of things on eBay, that's for sure. But yeah, so yeah, I've just kind of started to build that. Finding the records is difficult. We live in, what do we have here, including the suburbs? We have around 1 million people, maybe.
A little under 1 million.
little
Tulsa
un-
Metro, I think, is 990 or 970.
Sure, and we have about 6 record stores. Now, to juxtapose that,
Have you heard of Grandpa's Records?
I have, yeah. Heard of
I
Grandpa's.
know the lady that owns it.
Yeah,
Sweet lady.
and then we have places like that, and people who are selling them in flea markets and vintage stores.
Vintage stock.
Vintage stock has them.
there.
Barnes and Noble has a larger new selection of records than Josie Records does.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, they're freaking, they're everywhere. But to find the good used ones, what I'm looking for, can be difficult. You have to be kind of plugged in. So that's the stuff I've worked on.
It's like a black market of vinyl.
It is a black market of vinyl. I know a guy who knows this guy who knows this other guy, and you're going to meet him in a basement at 5:30.
He's going to trade the vinyl for that one plus $100 cash.
Pretty much.
Open up his Jackie, be like, what you want, huh?
Yeah. So on that story, I went to Arizona earlier this year to look at this gentleman's collection, and we'd done a little business. He'd shipped me some records, and I bought some records from him, and I think I developed a rapport with him. And so, I fly out to Arizona. Me and a mutual friend are staying with this guy, and I'm going to look at the rest of his record collection. And, it's awesome. I go in, I'm like, yeah, you got some killer stuff, and he wants to hang out. So I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, let's hang out. We'll get to know each other, and then we'll talk business later. And the whole time this guy's like avoiding talking about selling the rest of his records to me. So finally, on the day before we leave, I'm like, all right, let's talk records. This is what I'm going to offer you. He agrees. I ship him shipping materials because there's really not enough there for me to go and pick it up, right? We're talking like maybe 1,200 records. You can ship that and get away with it. And then he just changes his mind. Like, I'm back in Tulsa. I've flown back. I thought we've done the deal, and then he's just like, oh no, yeah, well, I think they're worth more money than that.
Oh yeah.
And
The roundabout.
yeah, and to be totally real, there are people who will try to take advantage of you. But man, I really try to be honest, and I tell people up front, and I'm transparent. When I come in and I say, okay, here's what you have, here's what I'm probably going to make on it, here's what I'm going to offer you, and I think that that's fair. Because I have to do all of the work, or I offer consignment as an option as well if they have some higher dollar things that they don't want to like take maybe a third of. They want to get a little bit bigger piece of the pie. And so, yeah, that was a complete and utter loss. I mean, I literally touched base with this guy a couple months after I'd been there, and he didn't even know who I was. I hung out with this dude for like 4 days, completely. So that's what you can get into with this. Recently, I got stuck in the middle brokering a collection. I cannot say who wants it and who's selling it, but it was such a large collection I couldn't afford it. And the guy didn't want to do consignment. He wants to sell it all as one big collection. And this guy also has around 10,000 records. And I had another interested party, a high roller, and I'm trying to put them together, but now it's on the back burner. So, you have a lot of that stuff going on, and it gets
I had
to,
no idea.
yeah,
Literally black market.
yeah, definitely.
I mean, he's just calling people constantly, it sounds like. And like you said, you're waiting for that guy who knows a guy who happened to find something in a storage unit or something. And, oh, yeah, I forgot I had this in the basement. I mean, you're constantly on that chase for that next big record, I guess it would be.
Definitely. And having the capital to wait happens is, just by the universe. I'm not really quite sure. My first year, I did really well. I was like, damn, all right, yeah, shit, yeah, all right, let's rock. Second year, I started off with a guy in Arizona. Um, and so it's been discouraging. But, what is someone like mine, you know, like me, what are my options? I can't go to my mom and dad and say, hey, mom and dad, I need 100 grand to keep this baby on track, or hey, benefactor. I mean, I'm not nothing against people who do. If you have that resource, that's awesome.
Right.
Easier to make money when you got money, always. But I'm speaking more to people like me who don't have that resource. Sometimes you gotta keep rolling. I mean, you gotta believe in yourself and have faith. um Maybe not even godly faith, but maybe faith in the universe or whatever, that you've put enough good out there, something's going to come back.
Hmm.
And that's where I'm at right now. I have probably 10 leads, 10 people I've spoken to in the last couple of months, and none of them ever are easy. You're having to work them, not really work them like you're trying to take advantage of them, but it's like they contact you to sell the records, and then they're emotionally attached to them.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so you have to convince them to sell them.
That you're going to be a good stewardess of their stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, certainly. So, and
It's like trying to sell your dad's truck.
Right. Right. It's the
And
same
if you
concept.
sell it, it's going to somebody
That
who
right.
will admire it.
Right. You wouldn't sell it to just a random guy who's going to hack it back together. Yeah.
definitely so.
Let it sit.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you have to, if you're going to get into business and you are someone like me who can't go to the bank and withdraw a ton of money to keep rolling, you have to have faith in yourself. But I think the number one thing you have to have is passion. If I was not passionate about it, I wouldn't keep going. And that's just the long and short of it. I'm passionate about records. I'm passionate about music. I love them. I believe in it. If I had the money and the resources, I would open up a shop that had a gigantic hi-fi and sold the kind of records I wanted to sell, and I'd have people come in and to show them how good music can sound,
Mhm.
because I don't think they know. I don't think they know. The
I'd,
general public has no clue.
I'd be willing to bet you're probably right. And
Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet you're probably. And I love that you say that because we had an episode, and I can't. I'm not very good at pinpointing which episodes, but where we talked about that because, like you, Braden, and myself, I mean, we have no plan B. You know, this is plan A,
This is
version
this
2.0
is the only
or
plan.
whatever. Right.
Yeah.
There's only one plan. You got to make it work, right? And we've talked about multiple times where when you're in those predicaments, it really does make you kind of like whenever you were buying that record collection, you really don't know what you're getting into when you start a business. But I feel many of us probably had a similar experience where the first couple years are like, just dude, we're killing it, you're doing great, and then all of a sudden reality hits and business hits and it all catches up, and you're like, what happened?
It's
Um,
and a number of things could cause that. It
right,
could be the
right,
economy. It could be a shift in the industry, in
absolutely.
technology.
Mhm.
You know, it could be the fact that you've been doing things for 2 years and people want something different. Now
Right.
you got to adapt and add new service lines or new products, and you know,
Exactly. And I love that you at the end of it you're like, you gotta have faith. You gotta just essentially you gotta have grit. You gotta just put
I
your
was getting ready to say that.
nose to the grindstone and just get after it. And when those 10 leads have kind of gone cold, what do? You call them again. You know, what else are you gonna do? You
What's the
can't.
story on how I got you?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Call them again. He'll eventually answer. They'll eventually, something. And if it's a no, it's not a no right now, or it's not a no forever. It's just a no right now. So, and a lot of that goes down to having that constant battle within yourself, right? Of, am I being too pushy, or am I actually building that rapport as someone who is on top of their game? So, and I use that analogy because that's Braden's tactic, plain and simple. Like he's just pushy enough that he's actually helping just remind you, and you're so busy doing other stuff that he's like, okay. And it's like, as a business owner, you have to get good at that. You have to get good at not necessarily pushing a sale, but you're pushing a relationship, right? So with my customers, kind of like yours, I try to tell everybody, like, I hate upselling you. I don't want to upsell you. I'd rather be transparent, honest. What do you want? I'm not going to try to sell you any more than what you want. I hate asking the question, what's your budget? But I don't want to try to sell you something you don't want, nor do you want to spend the money on. Like, it's just not, why would I give you this design for this grand, beautiful thing if your budget was like 2 grand? It just makes no sense either for me or for you.
Right.
But in that, you're like I said, in the constant reminders of my aspect is when I do something, I try to just keep building that rapport. Hey, how's that plant doing? Hey, how's that irrigation doing? Whatever that is, like you said, and it's constantly, it may not be a lead at the moment, right? But you know that this person, there's more value there, right? So that person who sold you one record, you're like, well, I know he's got a good collection. So that's where I just got to make a call and see how he's doing today, and that's the hard part. That's the hardest part. It's easy once you get that sale to, all right, put it in the mail and go and send it in or whatever. Like, that's the easy part. The hard part is the phones are dead. There's nothing coming in, and thinking, I got to pick up that phone again and be annoying again. I got to go through my contact list. I literally did this last week, 2 weeks ago. Went through my phone all the way from A to Z, just thinking, okay, this person might be interested in that. I should give them a text. This person. And I made a list of like 30 something people. Of the 30 something people, 6 people bought that same day. And it's like, that was as
Wow,
simple
really?
as
That's
one simple
good.
text. It's a small job, the easy sell.
Job's a job.
But exactly.
Even
but
if it pays the bills.
exactly. And it came down to what was it? It was, as a business owner, you're caught in this predicament, like you said, where a lot of us have been, where your hands are tied. You know the answer, which is just keep going. I gotta figure it out. I'm just gonna keep going. But your hands are tied and you're just like, I'm done. I don't know what to do. And then the only answer is pick up the phone and get back after it.
What did the
And-
Wolf of Wall Street guy say? Are
I
you
don't know.
behind on your mortgage? Good. Pick up the phone and start dialing.
Right.
Does your girlfriend think you're a worthless piece of shit? Good. Pick up the phone and
That's
start dialing.
right.
I love it.
And it's true. It comes down to that. Because like I said, once you make the sale, it's easy to do the work. I mean, yeah, it's laborious. There's stuff, but getting that work is the hardest part. And you're in a very, very niche area, right? Where you are, like I said, you're building relationships, just like your relationship with music since you were a kid. you're trying to build that same relationship with people that ideally have been building collections, or maybe just starting collections that, because like you said, there's those of people who are our age or younger who can walk into the bank and pull 100 grand. Good for them. Those are your future clients. You need to find them, you know. But it's not us. That's okay. But you're constantly looking for that niche person, and I admire that. That, like you said, it's the passion behind it. We had that episode, which I think was actually called, is it passion or, oh, what was it? Passion or something comes first. But we came to that, we're all passionate about something in some way, shape, or form. And I love that your story basically leads down to, I have a passion about music, but I also see I am worth more than what the arts are willing to give me. And you make a good point, because we have a Chance. He's not here today, but he loves modifying cars. And Braden's asked before in conversations, just passing, well, why don't you just do that like full time? Because there's no money in modifying cars. The art of modifying cars, there's no money in there. That's a love. It's purely a love concept, right? And I love that you've been able to turn this love into some sort of income. That's really hard to do. And even though you've got your struggles that we all have as business owners, like, well, I'm going to keep doing it because there's passion behind that, and that's something really said, to be said, to say for it, because it's hard. It's hard to just keep going. And I know, like, whenever you look at, for me, for instance, my passion is not landscaping. My passion is my kids and my wife.
More passion. More
Right.
passion.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's for my kids. It's for my wife. Like, I saw an opportunity because of the way life happened for us, and it was an opportunity that looked as a door closed, and it really wasn't a door closed. It was an opportunity for this beautiful life that we have now, and you too. You kept seeing those doors closed essentially, and you're like, you know what? I'm gonna build my own damn door, and that's what you've done.
Yeah, and you gotta, sometimes, and this is gonna sound goofy too, maybe to some folks, sometimes you kind of like the old universe is trying to tell you a message. All those people that kept saying, wanted me to start a record store for them. Of course, they wanted me to help them make money, but they knew that I knew a lot. And
Oh
so
yeah.
after that happened so many times, and I left, I was just like, the universe is trying to tell me that I need to try to
Hmm.
do this. You know what I mean? Uh, through whatever, through me doing what I've done for the last 20 years. And so, yeah, you just have to follow your passion. I really think that more people should try to start their own business. Like I said, I only had $10,000. I mean, that's like nothing in 2023, as we know.
I didn't have anything.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. See.
I was in the same boat as him, but I had just sold my pride and joy for it, so I was very sad.
I
But
sold I sold some jobs and sold enough jobs to where it just like created some revenue.
revenue to keep going.
Uh,
Nice.
and of course, like in my space, like initially I don't need equipment or inventory, so
Mhm,
it's a little
mhm.
bit more unique. So, any final thoughts as we wrap up our hour here?
No, I just want to say, yeah, if you're out there and you have a passion, don't stay at that job like my story, who's not going to reward you, where you're not. We all want the American dream, whether that's a dream that's attainable, but I think it is. And don't stay at that job that's not going to reward you for your hard work, that doesn't appreciate you, that doesn't. They wanted you in the beginning, but now they don't want to move you up. Well, know your own worth. Know your own worth. Know your passion. Get out there. Start small. Start small. Build your way up. I'm telling you, you're gonna look back in a year, in 2 years, and you're like, wow, look at all I did, and I did it on my own. One thing people should go watch. Just my one recommendation is the Todd McFarlane Image comic story. That's something that always came back to me. They all left, the top 5 artists in comics. They left Marvel Comics because they were like, we're creating these like Venom.
Mhm.
Todd McFarlane creates Venom, right? We've created this. They're selling T-shirts. I'm not getting $1. They're not going to. So they left. They figured out we only have to sell so many comic books for us to make exactly what we make now for Marvel Comics. You know what I mean? So they quit and they went and started Image Comics, Spawn and all those guys, and that their story is awesome because not only did they just sell enough comics to make what they made at Marvel, they started selling millions of comic books, and it was because they took that risk. They knew their own worth. So if you're out there, follow that and go watch that documentary. It inspired me.
I want to watch that. I will say, you shared, well, Brews and Business shared this week. That question was asked in one of our podcasts, right? Should we start a business or not? And I said no right off the bat. And you know what? Now that he said that, I want to say yes because I genuinely feel people would be nicer to each other if more people realize how hard it is to run a business. People would be nicer to each other because I hate to say it, we're all people, but people are assholes. And if you're in your own business and you realize how hard it is as a mom and pop business to make all those things happen, you expect Walmart at a mom and pop store. It's not going to happen. You know, you get an experience at a mom and pop shop, start a business, realize people are assholes and start being nice to everybody else. Like I love that. Yeah. You should start a business because it's not for the faint of heart, but it is fun. It's a lot of fun. You do something different every day. A lot of times you do stuff you don't want to do, which is great. Builds character, right?
Someone asked me, they're like, what do you like to do for fun? What are your hobbies? I was like, well, I like to work. I like to work on my business. Like I got a list of stuff that I get excited to work on.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's not like, oh, dang, I got to work on this. Hold on. Like,
Well, you're
I don't
passionate
know.
about
It's
it.
fun.
That's what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, your passion. You find passion in business, right? You started a business not because, like you said, you had people. The universe was talking to you already, right? In a language that you didn't realize how to listen to. And then once you realized it was saying something, you realized, you know what? I'm passionate about this. I'm also passionate about business because I know that will fulfill the life that I want, that no one else is going to give me. So here I am. I got my passion and you just get after it. And you know, like you said, what hobbies, man, once you become a business owner, I feel like we do have hobbies, but it's hard to pinpoint those hobbies because if you're anything like us, I mean, you wake up thinking about work, you go to sleep thinking about work, you're constantly thinking about who you haven't touched base with.
Sometimes you
needed
just
touch
want to
base.
quit.
Yeah,
You just
sometimes
want to
you
just
do.
shut off your
Sometimes
brain
you
and be
wish you had a
like,
hobby, right?
Right.
But you realize, and I've realized here, and I love the records because just recently I've been working on my dad's truck, right? And I can equate the records to my dad's truck because it's just raw. Something about that is just raw. It's real. It's amazing. Um, but when I think about the hobby aspect of it, it's, well, is it really a hobby? I'm like, no, not really. Like, this is part of work. I need this truck to work so I can work. Like, you know, it's just, it kind of all rolls together once you become a business owner. Your whole life revolves around that work. And whether you're, like, for instance, this actually, Brews and Business, a few weeks ago, I was talking to my mom and I was like, well, I got to go. I'm going to go, you know, yeah, I got to go work. It was already late on Friday. And it's like, I got to go to work. She's like, go to work? What do you mean? It's like Friday at 3 o'clock. I was like, I know, I'm already running late. I'm going home for lunch. I'm got to go to the podcast, blah, blah, blah. She's like, the podcast? What's that? I was like, oh, well, we do a podcast. We've been doing it for like a year. She's like, I had no idea. I was like, well, yeah, it's like a whole second passion project type thing. And she's like, well, what is it? I was like, well, really, it's work, but I kind of look forward to it every 2 weeks.
It's
And she's
almost
like,
like
what do you
therapy.
Yeah. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, I guess everything I do is work now. Like, it is work related in some way, shape, or form. So I love that. Hobbies, you know, I fell in love with the business. So my hobby kind of revolves around that. I'm sure yours is similar. You know, your hobbies might be going to the flea markets and looking for what you can find, you know, or whatever. And that's such an interesting question to ask business owners. Most of them, I feel like their question is, when do you find time to do hobbies?
Well, I mean, depending on where you're at in business too.
True.
Like
True.
a couple of gentlemen that we met with few
Yeah.
weeks ago, like they go to the ocean once a year, twice a year,
Right.
and fish, or they hunt a lot and stuff like that. But yeah,
I love that. I love hearing just the stories. Perfect example of, you got 2 years in business, correct?
Correct.
2 years in business, very relatable areas of our lives because we're in the thick of it right now, right? And then we've also had people on board who, like you said, depending on where you are, so there is a payoff, right? There is. You just got to keep at it. You got to keep at it, and one day you'll get there. Like you said just a second ago, you know, you look back. Even I look back last year, and I'm just like, wow, like we've done great. Now you look at the books, you look at everything, it don't look great, but we've improved processes. We've improved, like for instance, it will put in a relationship like your record collection. It may not look like much has happened, but look at what records you have now that you didn't have last year, that you last year you weren't even on the radar, and stuff like that. I know same way for you and your customers that we've talked this year, and you've landed some customers like, dude, that's awesome. And then Brews and Business, same thing. It's kind of just an idea that kind of goes, and then before you know it, you've got something rolling. Like you said too at the beginning of the podcast with your YouTube channel, you're like, I wanted it to be so good, so good. He's like, finally, I just started going. So I love that. If you're gonna start a business, just get after it. You'll figure it out along the way.
Yeah, and you're going to run into situations where you don't know what to do. I mean, even going back to college and being in business class. I mean, I've run into situations. I'm like, man, what do I do now? I mean,
So did you finish that? You got your degree in business?
I did not because someone else called start a record store with them. So I went and left and did that. And that's actually what led me to Analog Productions. I was trying to get a wholesale deal. Analog Productions is a label, Acoustic Sounds is a wholesale shop, online retailer, but that's their parent company, right?
Okay.
And so I was fishing for a wholesale deal, and a guy I know says, "Oh, I know the owner of that guy," and he calls me and he talks to me for 5 minutes. He's like, "I'm not giving you a wholesale deal." He goes, "You need to come work for me," and so that's kind of how that.
It's funny the way life does that to you, huh?
It
It
is
just throws these curveballs, and if you just go with it, it usually pans out. That's the man upstairs or whoever just playing their game, and you just kind of got to go with it sometimes.
definitely, yeah, and you're gonna suffer. You're gonna have hard times, and but you're gonna suffer and have hard times working for somebody else too. Probably harder. At least you're in some sort of. You have some sort of say and some sort of
Control
control,
power.
right?
You
Right.
got a lot less when there's corporate power over you telling you what to do, and you're like, I know this isn't going to work, but okay, boss,
Yeah, right.
whatever.
And that's the thing is as a business owner, you carry a stress over yourself because you realize like ancient times, if you do not hunt, you do not eat.
Right.
Plain and simple. And at the same time, it's like, will you carry that on you? Yeah, it's really hard to carry, but I also get to wake up late if I want to. I also get to, only make certain amount of calls and go spend time with my families if I want to. Like there's definitely a give and take. There's definitely a freedom to running your own business, and at the same time there's that stress that's on your back, 24/7. And I don't know, I definitely I enjoy it. I love having some sort of control over my life, even though sometimes I let work control my life. But it's nice, like you said, in a sense of working for someone, you never have the ability to say, okay, I'm done. I'm taking control of my life again. No, you're stuck there 9 to 5 doing what they tell you, or whatever hours you work. Whereas in business, I always talk about the pendulum, right? So sometimes you swing and you're thick in the business, but you can always correct and say, you know what, this year I'm going to put a focus on my family. You had your baby this year, and the family was a big focus for you, and it's like something running your business, you can do that. Whereas at home, you know, it actually perfect example is between you and Leslie, right? She got to take that break, but unfortunately at a certain point she had to go back to work and get back into it. Whereas you were able to completely different shift. It's like I still have to shift because we're having kids and this and that, but I get to design that shift, not ask for someone for the ability to make that shift. And that's you can't put a price on that.
Right. Yeah. If you've got, you have to have the work ethic, obviously, but to be able to get things done when you have the time, but like you said, it's nice to be flex.
I give my team that kind of flexibility because I think that's really important, especially for the millennial type generation, a little bit before, a little bit after, being able to have that flexibility. So it's not like, oh, I'm chained down to 9 to 8 to 5, sitting in this desk being forced. Like, offer the flexibility if someone's like, hey, I really want to work from home today because of blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, have you talked to anybody else? Do they need you here? This is a team effort. Okay, cool. Just go work from home. Like, Maddie isn't working today or on Monday, and her birthday's tomorrow. And
Nice.
so I gave her, she was able to take Friday and Monday off. I was like, you're just making sure everything's covered. You're good to go. Clients are good. I was like, do you need anything? And all that kind of stuff. But that flexibility is nice
Hmm.
to be able to provide. So
So Joshua, I got to ask you, for our listeners, for Braden and myself, what's the best way for us to help you in your business? Let's say, is it if we find that guy that's just really into music to say, hey, you need to know Joshua? Or is it, what does that look like? How do we help you out in your business? And then how do we get a hold of you? How do we, what does that look like?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, I'm mainly looking for high quality stuff. So, if it's, I'm not typically not looking for like, dusty 45s or uh, not really looking for a whole lot of country. Not
Okay.
that country's not good, but we have, a ton of it
Okay.
already here. So I'm typically looking for rock, pop, jazz, hip hop stuff that's clean from, let's say, the 60s until present day. That's typically what I'm buying. You can you can contact me through my website, which is hi-fidelityrecords.com. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm High Fidelity Vinyl, High Fidelity Records on Facebook. Just remember it's with an HI, not the H.
YouTube.
Yeah, I've got my YouTube channel on there, and I talk about records. I do shootouts, like between different versions of records,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
That is pretty cool.
yeah, and so yeah, I'm kind of just dabbling and trying to get my name out there any way I can. So yeah, if you know somebody that's got a killer collection and they're wanting to get top dollar, maybe they want to do some consignment and want to work with somebody who's knowledgeable, trustworthy, and has the reach to get them the kind of money they need, then yeah, give me a shout.
So let me ask you this, and kind of goes on with that question. Let's say someone's got a grand
Sure.
and they have a record collection. They have no idea. They don't want to mess with it. Is that something worth your time? Like, is that something that you like? Hey, well, send me a few pictures of what you got, or is that something you're like, yeah, I'd rather not deal with, or is that like, because like you said, sometimes there's hidden gems in that. So that's what I'm asking. If someone's like, I really just don't know. I'm just gonna put the whole house as an estate sale. Is that somewhere where I'd be like, hey, Joshua, you want to come look at this before they put it up in the estate sale? Like, you get first dibs, first look at this, or whatever. Is that something you're interested in, or not necessarily?
Yeah, certainly. So not to be uncouth or morbid, we're kind of getting to the point where the folks who were collecting in the '60s are
Exactly.
getting up there. You know what I mean? And so if we're talking about, I do deal with some people are past or in their 80s or 90s. Well, they were typically probably collecting 78s. 78s were the precursor to the 33 and a third, which is an LP, what we collect today. Um, and so I get a lot of calls on those. There's really literally very little market for those. They're
Okay.
fairly. There's some people that collect them, but yeah, if it's classic rock, your type stuff, 60s, 70s, and 80s, I'm always interested. I've had that happen here in town where a gentleman has passed who was in his probably late 60s and was collecting during that time period, and yeah, picked up his collection, cut him a check for a good amount of money, and they were able to put that in the bank and roll on down the road. So yeah,
Nice. Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
definitely.
That
That's
pretty. I mean, that wraps us up pretty well then, huh?
Yeah.
that was a good one.
Well, we really appreciate all you guys tuning in to the Brews and Business podcast. We'd love to see your support. So give us a like, subscribe, comment. Any questions you might have below, any one of us are happy to answer. If you have ideas for topics or people you would like for us to bring onto the show, go ahead and comment that, send us a message, or get a hold. And until then, cheers and happy brewing. Thanks for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.